It started with a simple question, but the answer to that question would eventually expose years of hidden tension, quiet resentment, and a family dynamic that was far more fragile than anyone watching from the outside realized. The moment itself looked small on television, almost forgettable to casual viewers. A conversation between sister wives about childcare. A babysitter. A misunderstanding, perhaps. But to those who were paying attention, that moment was something else entirely. It was the instant when a mask slipped and the truth peeked through, just long enough for everyone to glimpse what had been hiding underneath for years. The scene unfolded during an ordinary conversation in the Brown family. Emotions were already delicate, tensions already simmering under the surface. When Christine Brown finally spoke up, her voice carried a mixture of confusion and hurt that had clearly been building for a long time. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't accusing anyone of wrongdoing. Instead, she asked a question that sounded almost painfully sincere. If Robyn needed help with the kids, why hadn't she asked her? Why hire a babysitter when a sister wife, someone who had spent years caring for the entire family, was right there? To many people watching the show Sister Wives, the question seemed obvious. After all, Christine had always been the heart of the family's childcare system. She had raised not only her own children but also helped care for Yanel's kids for years. In the early days of the family, Christine had practically become the glue that held everything together. While Yanel worked long hours to support the household financially, Christine managed the chaos of a massive home filled with children. Meals had to be prepared, school lessons organized, arguments settled, tears wiped away. And somehow she managed to do it all while maintaining the warmth and humor that made the kids adore her. For over a decade, Christine had been the woman everyone depended on. When a child needed comfort, they went to Christine. When someone was hungry, Christine cooked. When someone needed help with homework, Christine sat beside them patiently. It wasn't glamorous work, and it certainly wasn't easy. But it was work she embraced because she believed in the family they were building together. Which is why Robyn's decision to hire a nanny struck Christine like a quiet betrayal. When Christine first discovered that Robyn had brought in outside help, her reaction wasn't anger. It was confusion. Her mind immediately jumped to a painful question. Why wasn't she good enough? Why didn't Robyn trust her with the children? The question lingered in her mind for days, maybe even weeks, before she finally gathered the courage to bring it up. When she did, the conversation revealed far more than anyone expected. Christine explained how hurt she had felt when she learned about the babysitter. She said that her first thought had been simple and heartbreaking at the same time. Why weren't we good enough? Why didn't you ask me first? Those words hung in the air like a fragile thread connecting the past to the present. They weren't just about childcare. They were about belonging. They were about trust. They were about a sister wife who had spent years believing she played an essential role in the family, suddenly realizing that maybe she had been pushed aside without even noticing. But what happened next is what made the moment unforgettable. Instead of responding with understanding or empathy, Robyn reacted with visible irritation. Her tone shifted quickly from calm to defensive, and the words that came out of her mouth stunned everyone watching. "Are you serious right now?" Just like that, the conversation changed direction. There was no apology, no attempt to acknowledge Christine's feelings, no reassurance that the decision had nothing to do with trust. Instead, Robyn's response felt dismissive, almost as if the question itself was unreasonable. As if Christine's hurt was something she shouldn't even be bringing up. For viewers, that reaction raised an uncomfortable question. Why would someone become defensive over such a simple concern? Because if the nanny truly had nothing to do with Christine, if the decision had simply been about convenience or circumstance, then explaining it should have been easy. But Robyn didn't explain it. She deflected. And that deflection would eventually lead fans to wonder whether the nanny was really about childcare at all. Robyn insisted that the babysitter, her niece Mindy, was helping because she was trying to find work while substitute teaching in Las Vegas. According to Robyn, bringing her in was simply a practical solution. Someone to help manage the household while the adults worked. But the explanation had a flaw that was impossible to ignore. Christine wasn't working outside the home. In fact, Christine's entire role within the Brown family had always revolved around caring for the children. That was the reason Cody had originally married her in the first place. In the early years of the family, Cody had openly explained that Christine's presence allowed the plural marriage to function smoothly. She was the stay-at-home mother who ensured the household operated like a real family rather than 4 separate homes with disconnected lives. So when Robyn claimed she needed help with childcare because everyone was busy working, the logic didn't quite add up. Christine was right there. She had been caring for 12 children for years. 6 of her own and 6 belonging to Yanel. She had handled everything from homeschooling to daily meals without hiring outside help. She had done it because she believed that's what sister wives did for each other. Which made Robyn's decision to hire someone else feel less like a practical choice and more like a deliberate exclusion. The pain of that realization slowly began to surface during the conversation. Christine tried to explain that they didn't need Mindy. The family already had someone who knew the children, who loved them, who had years of experience managing a household filled with kids. "We have Christine," someone said during the discussion, acknowledging what had once been obvious to everyone. Christine was the mother figure. But Robyn had chosen someone else. At first glance, the conflict seemed like a simple misunderstanding between sister wives. Yet over time, fans began to revisit that scene with a different perspective. Because as the seasons continued, something became increasingly clear. Robyn's household functioned very differently from the others. Cody seemed to spend far more time there. The children in Robyn's home had a different relationship with him than the other kids did. The atmosphere around Robyn often felt quieter, more private, more separate from the rest of the family. And suddenly, the nanny made a lot more sense. A nanny, after all, is an employee. An outsider. Someone who enters the home to do a job and leaves when that job is finished. A nanny doesn't question family dynamics. A nanny doesn't compare one household to another. But a sister wife would. If Christine had been watching Robyn's children every day, she would have spent countless hours inside Robyn's home. She would have seen who came and went. She would have noticed how often Cody was there. She would have observed the rhythms of daily life in a way that cameras could never fully capture. And that access might have revealed things Robyn preferred to keep private. Fans who studied the situation began to speculate about what Christine might have discovered if she had been allowed to step into that role. She might have seen Cody spending time at Robyn's house during hours that were supposedly dedicated to another wife. She might have noticed differences in how resources were distributed. She might have recognized that the ideal of equal plural marriage was quietly fading. Perhaps most importantly, Christine might have formed a deep bond with Robyn's children. And that possibility could have changed everything. Christine had already become a maternal figure to Yanel's kids. They adored her. Even years later, their connection remained strong. They spoke about Christine with warmth and affection, remembering the way she had cared for them when they were young. If Robyn's children had developed that same attachment, it would have blurred the lines Robyn seemed determined to maintain. The family would have felt more interconnected, more unified. But unity can also create transparency. And transparency can reveal truths that some people would rather keep hidden. Looking back now, the babysitter controversy seems less like a minor disagreement and more like the beginning of a slow unraveling. It was the first visible crack in a structure that had been under pressure for years. Christine sensed something was wrong long before she fully understood what it was. Her heartbreak during that conversation wasn't just about feeling excluded. It was about realizing that the family she believed in might not exist in the way she imagined. She had spent years giving everything she had to make plural marriage work. She had believed that love, cooperation, and sacrifice would keep the family strong. But in that moment, when Robyn dismissed her question with a defensive shrug and a frustrated tone, Christine saw something she hadn't seen before. She saw distance. And once that distance appeared, it never truly disappeared. Because the truth was already beginning to surface, slowly but inevitably, like a secret that could no longer remain buried. What Christine didn't realize yet was that the babysitter issue was only the beginning. The real conflict, the one that would eventually tear the family apart, was still waiting in the shadows, growing larger with every passing year. And when it finally exploded, the question everyone would remember wasn't about childcare. It was a question Christine would ask years later. one that would echo across the entire fan community. What does the nanny do? By the time those words were spoken, the damage was already done. By the time that simple question about the babysitter faded from the conversation, something invisible had already shifted inside the Brown family. On the surface, life continued the way it always had. Cameras kept rolling, children kept growing, and the family continued presenting the image of unity that had defined them since the beginning of Sister Wives. But beneath that carefully maintained surface, a quiet tension had begun to spread, one that would eventually reshape everything. For Christine, the moment lingered long after the conversation ended. She tried to convince herself it was nothing. Families have misunderstandings, after all. Sister wives navigate complicated emotions every day. Perhaps Robyn had simply reacted defensively in the heat of the moment. Perhaps she hadn't realized how deeply the decision had hurt her. But the more Christine reflected on it, the harder it became to ignore the feeling that something wasn't right. Because the nanny wasn't just a one-time situation. It continued. Day after day, someone else walked into Robyn's home to care for her children. Someone who didn't share the complicated history of the Brown family. Someone who didn't sit at family meetings or participate in emotional discussions about plural marriage. Someone who, quite frankly, had no reason to question anything happening inside those walls. Christine tried to move past it. She focused on her own kids. She continued maintaining the relationships she had built with the older Brown children. Those kids still came to her for advice, still laughed with her, still treated her like a second mother. In many ways, Christine's bond with them only grew stronger as the years passed. But something about Robyn's household remained distant. And that distance became impossible to ignore as time went on. To understand why, you have to look at the way the family originally functioned. In the early years, plural marriage was presented as a carefully balanced system. Each wife had her own home and her own children, but the family operated like a collective unit. They shared responsibilities, supported each other emotionally, and worked together to create a sense of unity. At least, that was the theory. In practice, it required a tremendous amount of trust. Trust that resources would be distributed fairly. Trust that Cody would divide his time equally between households. Trust that no one wife would become more important than the others. For years, the Browns insisted that balance existed. But as the seasons unfolded, many viewers began to notice something subtle but undeniable. Cody seemed happiest when he was with Robyn. The shift wasn't immediate. It happened gradually, almost quietly. At first it appeared as small moments, extra smiles, longer conversations, little gestures that seemed harmless on their own. But over time, those small moments began to add up. Robyn's home started to feel different from the others. It was calmer, more private, more centered around Cody. Christine noticed it long before she spoke about it openly. She saw how Cody's energy changed when he was around Robyn. The way he listened more closely. The way he laughed more easily. The way his patience seemed to stretch further than it did in the other homes. At first Christine told herself it was normal. Robyn was the newest wife. Naturally there would be excitement. Naturally Cody would be drawn to her in ways that reflected the early stages of a relationship. But as the years passed, the excitement didn't fade. If anything, it intensified. And slowly, the balance that once held the family together began to tilt. One of the most revealing parts of the situation was something Christine realized much later. If she had been helping with Robyn's children the way she had helped raise Yanel's kids, she would have been inside Robyn's home regularly. She would have seen the daily routine up close. She would have noticed things. The small details that reveal more about a household than any conversation ever could. She might have noticed how often Cody arrived during the day. She might have noticed how long he stayed. She might have seen how frequently his schedule revolved around Robyn's needs rather than the family rotation everyone had agreed upon. Those details may have seemed insignificant at first. But when you put them together, they form a pattern. And patterns are difficult to ignore. That possibility is exactly why many fans began questioning the nanny situation years later. Because the nanny wasn't just childcare. The nanny was privacy. A hired employee doesn't compare one wife's home to another. A nanny doesn't attend family meetings or listen to emotional discussions about fairness and equality. A nanny simply performs the job she was hired to do. Christine, on the other hand, would have seen everything. She would have noticed if Cody was present more often than the rotation suggested. She would have noticed differences in how the homes were run. She would have seen firsthand whether the principles of plural marriage were truly being honored. And if she had noticed those things, the conversation about equality might have started much earlier. Instead, the walls around Robyn's household remained intact. The nanny came and went, and Christine stayed outside. Years passed like this, with tension quietly building beneath the surface. Then something happened that forced the entire family to confront the imbalance they had been avoiding. The COVID pandemic. When the pandemic began, families everywhere faced difficult decisions about safety and contact. For the Brown family, those decisions became especially complicated. With multiple households and dozens of children, maintaining strict health precautions required cooperation from everyone. Cody quickly introduced a long list of rules. The children couldn't visit each other freely. Family gatherings were restricted. Even simple interactions between siblings became complicated. The rules were strict, sometimes painfully so. Some of the older children felt frustrated and confused. They wanted to see their siblings. They wanted to maintain the relationships that had defined their childhoods. But the rules were clear. Except for one thing. While the rest of the family was being asked to isolate, someone was still entering Robyn's home every day. The nanny. At first, it seemed like a minor detail. But over time, the contradiction became impossible to ignore. If the family needed to be separated for safety, how could a hired employee continue moving in and out of Robyn's house? The question slowly spread through the family. And eventually, Christine asked the question that would echo across the entire fan community. What does the nanny do? It sounded simple, but the meaning behind it was anything but simple. Christine wasn't really asking about childcare. She was asking why the rules applied to everyone except Robyn's household. If the family truly believed in strict isolation, then allowing a nanny to enter the home every day didn't make sense. If the family trusted each other, then why were the wives and children kept apart while an employee continued visiting freely? The contradiction was impossible to explain without exposing something uncomfortable. And then things got even worse. At one point during the pandemic, the nanny tested positive for COVID. The revelation sent shockwaves through the family dynamic. Suddenly, the person who had been allowed unrestricted access to Robyn's household was the very person who introduced the risk everyone else had been trying to avoid. By the time the pandemic tensions began to settle, the damage inside the Brown family had already reached a point where it could no longer be quietly ignored. What had once been small cracks, awkward conversations, subtle favoritism, quiet exclusions, had grown into deep fractures running through the entire structure of the family. And for Christine, the realization that things might never return to the way they once were began to settle in with a heavy, unavoidable weight. For years she had tried to hold on to the idea that plural marriage required patience. That difficult moments were simply part of a larger system that depended on sacrifice and understanding. Whenever something hurt her feelings, she often convinced herself that it was just another challenge that came with the lifestyle she had chosen. But slowly, the accumulation of those moments began to feel less like challenges and more like evidence. Evidence that the marriage she had spent decades believing in might not actually exist in the way she had imagined. What made the realization even more painful was the role Robyn seemed to play in it. For a long time, Christine had believed that Robyn was someone she could confide in. When Robyn first entered the family, Christine had genuinely hoped the two of them would build a strong bond as sister wives. She wanted to believe that adding another wife would strengthen the family rather than complicate it. At first, Christine tried to treat Robyn like a close ally. When she struggled in her relationship with Cody, she sometimes turned to Robyn for support. It felt natural at the time. After all, sister wives were supposed to lean on each other during difficult moments. They were meant to be friends as well as partners in a shared family. So Christine opened up. She talked about her frustrations. She admitted when she felt lonely. She shared the painful moments when her relationship with Cody felt strained or distant. She believed she was confiding in someone who understood the unique challenges of plural marriage. What she didn't realize then was that those private conversations weren't staying private. Years later, when Christine finally began speaking openly about what had happened behind the scenes, the truth shocked many fans. According to Christine, the things she had confided in Robyn about were being repeated directly to Cody. At first the pattern seemed subtle. Christine would vent to Robyn about something bothering her in the marriage. Later, when she spoke to Cody, he would already know what she had said. Even worse, he often seemed angry about it. The reaction left Christine confused. She couldn't understand how Cody had learned about the things she had shared in confidence. But the pattern kept repeating. Over time, it became impossible to ignore. Everything she said to Robyn somehow found its way back to Cody. The betrayal cut deeper than Christine initially admitted. It wasn't just about gossip or misunderstandings. It meant that the woman she had trusted as a sister wife had quietly positioned herself as a messenger between the other wives and their shared husband. And that role carried enormous power. Because whoever controlled the flow of information inside a family could also influence the narrative. They could shape how problems were perceived. They could decide which details were emphasized and which ones were left out entirely. Christine eventually began to suspect that Robyn had been using that position to strengthen her own relationship with Cody. Every complaint Christine made, every vulnerable confession, every moment of frustration, all of it could be presented to Cody in a way that made Christine appear difficult or ungrateful. Meanwhile, Robyn could position herself as the calm, understanding wife who was simply trying to help everyone communicate. Whether intentional or not, the result was the same. Christine often found herself defending things she had never expected Cody to know about. The trust she had once felt toward Robyn slowly began to disappear. And once that trust was gone, many of the family's earlier conflicts started to look different. The babysitter situation, for example, no longer felt like a misunderstanding about childcare. It began to look like part of a larger pattern, one where Robyn carefully controlled access to her life, her household, and the information flowing through the family. Christine began to wonder what she might have discovered if she had been allowed inside Robyn's home the way she had once hoped. What conversations might she have overheard? What dynamics might she have noticed between Robyn and Cody? What truths might have revealed themselves simply through everyday observation? Those questions lingered in Christine's mind as the years passed. But by the time she fully understood the answers, the emotional distance between her and the rest of the family had already grown too wide to bridge. Eventually, Christine reached a breaking point. After decades of trying to make plural marriage work, she made the decision that shocked fans around the world. She chose to leave. The announcement sent waves of reaction through the fan community. For many viewers, Christine had always seemed like the most dedicated believer in the family's lifestyle. She had defended plural marriage publicly for years, speaking passionately about the values of cooperation and shared love. So when she finally walked away, people immediately realized how serious the situation must have been. But Christine didn't just leave quietly. Over time, she began revealing the experiences that had led to her decision. One of the most striking stories she shared involved a moment that perfectly captured the imbalance she had felt for years.